trial attorney, legal analyst Misty Marris with us. Now that hearing just wrapped up, Misty, a short time ago. They're going to retry it, right, at some point? Is that's the plan?
Yeah, so this was the big question, Connell, and this is what we learned today. Alvin Bragg said that he is going to move forward with a retrial of Harvey Weinstein. There was some question about whether or not New York would actually do that. Number one, he's already convicted in California, 16-year sentence. Number two, they're going to be limited on the evidence that can come into the courtroom this time around, and that all relates back to the appellate decision, which overturned the original conviction.
Right, because there was evidence. It was from another case or an underlying
prior bad acts evidence,
right,
is what it's called, allowing other people to testify even though they're not part of the charged crime, and the issues that they testified about and what they testified about was never charged separately. So all of that's going to be relating to the new trial.
Any way to know, or just an opinion that you would share about whether they still have enough on the guy, or this has a big effect on it, you think, on the retrial?
It has a big effect. It's going to rise and fall on the testimony of the two victims. And so it's going to be up to a new jury who's not going to hear about what's called propensity evidence to make that determination about whether or not prosecutors fulfilled their burden beyond a reasonable doubt. I will say,
yes,
it's going to be tough for Harvey Weinstein to get a jury who doesn't know about him, doesn't have name recognition, hasn't formulated an opinion about him, especially the second time around in New York.
It's also going to be tough for him to get out of jail anyway because of California.
Right. So his 16-year sentence. This was all about whether or not he was remanded and remanded to jail. His lawyers argued that he's in poor physical condition, shouldn't be remanded. He's serving that 16-year sentence. That's also going to be appealed, which might be part of the motivation for New York to actually move forward with a new trial.
All right, bottom of the hour here. I want to shift to the protest scene. We've been watching Fordham University now here in Manhattan, the Lincoln Center campus today, of course, Columbia last night. And I say I want to shift with you because I want to talk, we'll see if the NYPD moves in at Fordham like they did at Columbia. But I want to talk about some of the legal issues that have come up here. I want to put a quote up from The Hill on public versus private universities. These two schools are both private, but there have been public schools that we've seen protests at as well. This is Fordham in Lincoln Center. Here's the quote from the article. Public and private institutions are not legally required to treat protesting the same because only public schools are bound by First Amendment requirements. Private schools have thus been able to take additional actions to curb the protest, such as shutting down outdoor parts of their campuses to the public. So is that all right? And what would you say about that part of it as we watch this develop across the country in a number of schools?
Absolutely true. The First Amendment only applies to the government trying to stifle speech. So that would apply to public universities, not private universities. So private universities, what is condoned by the school relating to protest or speech will rise and fall with their own policy. So it's going to be dictated by that. So each and every one of these schools should be handling those policies and executing them in a neutral way, or otherwise potentially opening themselves up to other liabilities. Say another group comes in and wants to do the same exact thing as this particular group, and they have not enforced what's on their books. Well, then that opens up that discussion of, well, there's not a neutral application to each group, and it's depending on the message, not the actual rules and regulations about protests.
What about that idea of opening yourself up, the additional liabilities that you talked about? I've seen arguments on both sides, certainly from Jewish students who say and we had an example the other day, anonymous student, I believe, or family at Columbia suing the university, and then from the protesters say, well, they're infringing upon our rights or rights to protest or whatever it may be, that they may have lawsuits. Will there be lawsuits here as this all wraps up?
I foresee a lot of lawsuits and a couple different theories of liabilities. From the protesters, there's going to be an analysis about whether or not what they're doing. You know, in New York here, we're seeing tents, we're seeing occupation of buildings. There's something called the time, place, and manner test. It has to be reasonable. The other piece is, was this an imminent threat? Was there an imminent threat which would take this out of the free speech arena? So that's all the analysis, whether or not those protesters will have veracity to their claims. The other side is discrimination, because Jewish students are now claiming that they've been deprived of actually being able to access the school. They can't go in. Their key cards are shut down. So that would mean that they don't have equal access under the law, which is required under statutes like Title VII of the Civil Rights Act or local law equivalents.
Does it just have to be Jewish students? Are you talking about something that's protected because of religious or religious affiliation? Or could it be any student who goes to Columbia and says, well, you know, I can't get to class, or I can't get to my dorm, or I can't go into Hamilton Hall, or whatever the case may be?
That's a great question. So it would be two different analysis. One would be more like a contractual law claim. A Title VII discrimination claim has to be based on protected class status. So yes, any student would have a case. it would be a different case depending on that individual.
All right, so there's going to be a lot to talk about. We don't want to make too much money for people like you, Misty, but this is what happened. No, I'm kidding. That's what happens in all this. No, thank you as always for explaining all of this. I was curious about how some of it would work, and you always do a great job of that. Misty Marris with us. All right, in a moment coming up.